Hello students! Welcome to the course THC1 Macro Perspective of Tourism and Hospitality. In this course, we are going to use the book of Dr. Zenaida Lansangan Cruz, Macro Perspective of Tourism and Hospitality. Do you know what is tourism and hospitality all about? I'm sure that you are very curious to what it is and why is it important. So our first topic in this course is about the meaning and importance of tourism and hospitality. Are you ready? Let's begin. These are the learning objectives of this lesson. To define tourism and hospitality, to understand the various elements of travel as a criteria for defining travelers, to explain the nature of a tour, to elucidate the characteristics of a tourist product and a tourist destination, to compare tourism and hospitality with other industries, and to appreciate the importance of tourism and hospitality. So now let us talk about the relationship of tourism and hospitality. The hospitality and tourism industries significantly affect each other. Hence, these are usually combined as one large industry by several associations and industry leaders. As you can see in this illustration, the hospitality industry and travel and tourism functions independently. However, they are connected to each other by the four major components. The first one that we have is the food and beverage industry. The food and beverage industry consists of catering and banquets, restaurants, beverage shops, institutions, and clubs. Next is the lodging industry, which is composed of clubs, institutions, hotels and motels, resorts, and convention hotels. Next is the recreation services. These consist of the activities that a tourist may do in a certain destination. And the last one is we have the transportation industry, which includes the three modes of transportation. We have the land, air, and sea travel. These components form the hospitality and tourism network, meaning a complex interconnection of parts and components. Each of the components may be independent and competitive businesses. However, they are interdependent and interrelated. Usually, this interdependence is strong in those countries that depend on hospitality and tourism for their economic development. Though these components are continually changing in connection with labor, opportunity, and growth, the network will continue to lead as a global industry. So now, we will discuss one by one the components of tourism and hospitality industry. These are food and beverage services, lodging services, recreation services, and travel-related services. The food and beverage component. The people look for food and beverage services everywhere, in hotels, motels, airports, airplanes, cruise ships, trains, and malls. Foods must be available to them for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks. Commercial restaurants are also open, such as fast food services, ethnic restaurants, and specialty restaurants. Also, taverns, bars, kiosks, vending machines, supermarkets, food stalls, food carts, and food trucks offer food and beverage services. The lodging component. Lodging provides overnight or long-term services to guests. Commonly, it is a place to sleep. But for others, it is not only providing a place to sleep, but also entertainment and recreational facilities. Thus, the lodging component started to accommodate several customer preferences, from budget motels to luxury hotels and expensive resorts. These are the different types of lodging services. We have inns, motels or motor inns, hotels, lodges, bed and breakfast, resort, condominium, conference center, time sharing, ski lodges, casino hotels, campgrounds, transient trailer parks, school or college dormitories, summer camps, health spas, parador, which is an old Spanish monastery or castle converted to a hotel, pension, which is a French or Italian home, which guests are provided with room and board, chateau is a French castle or elegant country home used as a hotel, ryokan is a Japanese inn which traditional customs are observed, and lastly, hostel, which is a lodging facility in which inexpensive accommodations are provided to students and guests on a non-profit basis. The recreation and entertainment component. Entertainment initiated from the traditional duties of a host to entertain his or her guests. It is his or her obligation to attend the needs of the guests not only for food and beverages and lodging but also for entertainment. Many centuries ago, lodging establishments attended to their guests' needs for entertainment by just purely talking to them, while others provided games such as darts, draughts, backgammon, or chess. Some provided jugglers and traveling minstrels. Nowadays, entertainment became broader. Guests are now offered with different kinds of entertainment and recreational activities such as golf, tennis, hiking, boating, swimming, casino gambling, and etc. The travel and tourism component. The travel and tourism sectors are used together as an umbrella term to refer those businesses that provide primary services to travelers. These include accommodation, food and beverage, recreation and entertainment, transportation, travel agencies, and tour operator services. For transportation, its primary purpose is to transfer people from one place to another. Transportation can be a form of land, sea, or air. Nowadays, people travel through airplanes, trains, buses, recreational vehicles, ships, and automobiles. The travel agencies and tour operators belong to the travel intermediary. A tour operator acts as a wholesaler. He or she contacts different tourism suppliers from hotels, transportation, recreation and entertainment, and attractions. The services from suppliers are then arranged and created as a tour package, which is sold at a single price. Usually, the tour package is sold through a travel agent that acts as the retailer. A travel agent sells travel services in a travel agency. He or she usually provides ticketing services, travel documentation, and travel arrangements. So now let us define tourism. Tourism actually has a lot of definitions from different experts. According to Professors Hanziker and Kraft of Bern University, Switzerland, tourism is the sum of the phenomena and relationships arising from the travel and stay of non-residents, insofar as they do not lead to permanent residence and are not connected to any earning activity. This definition somehow differentiates tourism from migration, as migration is the movement of people from one place to another with the intent to settle. Another definition of tourism according to the Tourism Society in Britain is that tourism is the temporary short-term movement of people to destinations outside the places where they normally live and work and their activities during their stay at these destinations. The Tourism Society in Cardiff reformulated this definition to tourism may be defined in terms of particular activities selected by choice and undertaken outside the home environment. Moreover, Burkhardt and Bedlick cited that tourism has 5 characteristics. Tourism is a combination of phenomena and relationships, which makes it complicated. Also, it has 2 essential elements: the dynamic element, or the journey, and the static element, or the stay. The journey and stay are to and from destinations outside the place of residence and work. The movement to destinations is temporary and short-term, intending to return within a few days, weeks, or months, but not more than a year. And the purpose of the visit is not connected with paid work, that is not to be employed, nor for business or vocational reasons. So now let us define hospitality. Hospitality is derived from the Latin word hospitare, which means to receive as a guest. This implies that a host is prepared to meet a guest's basic requirements while the guest is away from home. The guest requirements in these circumstances are food, beverage, lodging, or shelter. Some related words also come from the same Latin root, such as hospital, hospice, and hostel, though its principal meaning is a host who receives, welcomes, and caters to the needs of people who are temporarily away from their homes. So now let's talk about the types of visitors. We have here tourists and excursionists. Tourists are temporary visitors staying at least 24 hours in the destination, whose purpose could be for leisure, business, family, mission, or meeting. An example of this are those visitors staying in a resort for at least 2 nights. While excursionists are temporary visitors staying less than 24 hours in the destination and not making an overnight stay, including cruise travelers, but excluding transit passengers. Cruise travelers are included here even though they stay for how many nights inside the cruise ship, because when they visit a destination, they will just have an excursion, meaning they will only have a day tour in each destination. While transit passengers are excluded here, it is because they just stay in a destination for a while for the purpose of transferring transportation vehicles. So now let's go through the elements of travel. We have 4 elements of travel. These are distance, length of stay at the destination, residence of traveler, and the purpose of travel. So the first element is the distance. The distance can define whether a person is traveling within a local destination and or outside his or her own community. It excludes commuting to and from work or a change in residence. A measure that has been used to distinguish travel away from home is the distance traveled on a trip. A trip is defined as each time a person goes to a place at least 100 miles or 160.9 kilometers away from home and returns. The second element is the length of stay at the destination. This is a criterion used for defining whether a visitor is a tourist or excursionist. Next is the residence of traveler, which is essential to know a person's residence to identify the distance traveled. Also, this information is necessary for business and research purposes. And lastly, the purposes of travel. The purpose of travel can be divided into 7. The first one is we have the visiting friends and relatives. Next, conventions, seminars, and meetings. Business, outdoor recreation such as hunting, fishing, boating, and camping. Entertainment like sightseeing, theater, and sports. Personal like for family, medical, funeral, or wedding, and other reasons. So now let's discuss about the nature of a tour. So now we have different types of tourism based on the distance traveled by the traveler. The first one that we have is domestic tourism. It refers to travel taken exclusively within the national boundaries of the traveler's country. So for example, a person who lives in Cebu visits in Manila is an example of a domestic tourism. The next one is we have the national tourism, which refers to travel taken within a country by both residents and foreign travelers. So examples are those Koreans and Filipinos visiting Philippine destinations. Next is international tourism, which refers to travel taken across international boundaries, like Chinese visiting the Philippines and vice versa. Another one is local tourism, which refers to travel taken within a city, municipality, or province. So for example, a Tagomeño is traveling to Samal, and Tagum and Samal are two different cities but within one province, which is Davao del Norte. Next is regional tourism, which refers to travel within a specific region. So for example, a Tagomeño is traveling to Digos. So Tagum is in Davao del Norte province, while Digos is in Davao del Sur. But both cities are in Region 11. Another one is the inbound tourism, which refers to activities of non-resident visitors in a destination. So for example, a Korean citizen who visits here in the Philippines, that is an example of inbound tourism. While outbound tourism is the opposite of inbound tourism. So outbound tourism refers to the activities of a resident visitor to another destination. So for example, a Filipino who visits to Korea is an example of an outbound tourism. Next is a package tour or inclusive tour, which is an arrangement in which transport and accommodation are bought by the tourist at an all-inclusive price, and the cost of the individual elements can be determined by the tourist. So usually this package includes hotels, the vehicle that will be used, the foods, and entrance fees at the tourist attraction sites. So under the package tour, we have here two types. We have independent inclusive tour, or the IIT, and the group inclusive tour. So the independent inclusive tour is one in which the tourist travels to his or her destination individually, but still that tourist avail the services of a travel agent or a package tour. So for example, I am an individual traveler, I don't have any friend with me, but I want to go to Palawan, but I don't know anything about Palawan, so I will buy a package tour from a travel agent, and then when I go there, they will arrange all of my tours, and there will be a tour guide accompanying me all throughout my tour. Next is the group inclusive tour, or the GIT. It is when a person travels together with other tourists. So for example, in our class, we will be having an educational tour, so we can buy a package tour from a travel agent, and then we will be having the tour together. Next is we have the independent tour. So it is an arrangement in which the tourist buys the facilities separately, either making reservations in advance through a travel agent or en route during his or her tour. This is commonly known now as the DIY tour, or the do-it-yourself tour. So for example, if you want to go to a destination without having to avail the services of a tour operator, so you can actually just research about the place, map your own itinerary, and then go to the destination by yourself. You buy your own products, like you book your own hotel, you buy your own food, you just ride the local transportation in the area, etc., etc. Okay, so now we will be discussing about the tourist product. In a narrow sense, the tourist product consists of what the tourist buys. In a broader sense, the tourist product is a combination of what the tourist does at a destination and the services he or she uses during his or her stay. So these are the following characteristics of tourist products. It is a service, it is largely psychological in its attraction, it tends to vary in standard and quality over time, and its supply is fixed. So the first one is a service. A tourist product can be an intangible item. It cannot be inspected by prospective purchasers before they buy, unlike television or other consumer goods. A purchase of a tour package involves a high degree of trust on the part of the buyer. So in tourism and hospitality, it is different from other industries because for our product, we usually offer services. So usually, the consumers pay first for the product before they can avail it. So for example, when you go for a tour, of course, you need to pay first before you can go to the destination. Unlike when you buy a television in which you need to, but you can immediately get the television set and you can even inspect it before you pay for it. Next is tourism is largely psychological in its attraction. So the tourist product is more than just a collection of services. It is the temporary use of a strange environment, plus the culture and heritage of the destination, and other intangible benefits that tourists experience. Hence, the satisfaction of a tourist depends on the tangible and intangible features of the destination. So when we say tangible and intangible, tourist product is actually a combination of both the tangible and intangible items. So for example of tangible items, these are the rooms of the hotel, the beaches, the mountains, the rivers, and other physical attractions. While the intangible items are the services that we receive from those attractions, and of course the experience that we have there. So the satisfaction of a consumer or a tourist will depend on the type of the attraction that he or she is going to visit. So for example, my visit to Boracay is different from my visit to Urayas Peak because Boracay offers the beautiful white sand beaches while the Urayas Peak offers the beautiful scenery of Talaingod. So those experiences are really different from each other. Next is it tends to vary in standard and quality over time. So a package tour may not be consistent with equal standards. A tourist experience may be affected by several factors during his or her visit to the destination. So for example, a beautiful vacation may be turned into a nightmare when a tourist experiences poor services along the way. A fantastic first summer vacation in Boracay might also be different when a tourist visits the same place during winter for the second time, as it may be affected by the weather. Like my personal experience, so I've been to Boracay for 2 times. So those two experiences are different from each other even though I visited the same destination because during my first visit I was not able to experience the nightlife in Boracay. But during my second visit, I was able to experience what I did not experience during my first visit. So, aside from that, there are also services that I avail differently from my first visit to my second visit. Lastly is its supply is fixed, so most tourist product supplies cannot be changed just to meet the changing demands. So for example, an aircraft with a 180 passenger capacity still flies on its schedule despite that some seats are not sold. Moreover, these unsold aircraft seats cannot be stored for another sale unlike tangible products. This is also in the same case as hotels. Thus, most hotel and airline companies make great efforts to fill in the hotel rooms and aircraft by discounting the prices of these products. When I was working in the airline, I experienced that in one flight, the aircraft really flew despite that it doesn't have any passengers because the passengers were transferred to an earlier flight because of the very delayed schedule. So regardless of there is a passenger or not, the aircraft really flies on its schedule. So now we will be talking about the 5 A's of tourism. The 5 A's are attractions, accessibility, accommodation, activities, and amenities. So the first one that we have here is attractions. So these are a place of interest that tourists visit. So it may be in a form of a site attraction or an event attraction. So for a site attraction, it is one in which the destination itself has an appeal. So it may be a country, geographical region, a city, or a resort. It may also be a natural or a man-made attraction. So for the natural attraction, it includes the beaches, mountains, waterfalls, climatic features, and the like. So examples, we have Boracay Beach, Maria Cristina Falls, Mount Apo, and etc. For the man-made attraction, this includes buildings of historical or architectural interests, theme parks, or any other attractions that are built by humans. So examples of these are, we have Banawe Rice Terraces, we have the Energy Park of Tagum, the new City Hall of Tagum, and we can also consider the museums. Next is we have the event attraction. So it is an activity that draws the interest of the tourists. So it may include meetings, conventions, exhibitions, festivals, and the like. So examples of these are Kadayawan Festival, Musikahan Festival, and the Sinulog Festival. Next, A is the accessibility. So it means having regular and convenient transport in terms of time or distance to the destination from the originating place at a reasonable price. So in the Philippines, public utility vehicle, or what we call them as PUV, and public utility bus, or the PUB, play a significant role in the accessibility of the destinations. Good railways and coach services, airports, and seaports are designed to facilitate accessibility. Appropriate and adequate transport information also provides better access and smooth tourism flow. So even how beautiful is your tourist attraction, but if you don't have comfortable access to your destination, then it wouldn't be marketable to the majority of your tourists. So next is accommodation. Accommodation seems to be an underlying commodity for tourists in a destination. Some destinations in the Philippines offer lots of tourist attractions but lack accommodation facilities. Building the right accommodation facility that suits the needs of the tourists contributes to the success of a destination. So accommodation plays a very important role in the destination because it is part of a person's basic need. So shelter is actually part of our physiological needs according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And most problems in the Philippine destinations is that we have a lot of tourist attractions, but we lack accommodation. Alright, so next is activities. So activities support the attractions of a destination. So for example, the beach in Boracay has a wide range of water activities such as helmet diving, banana boat riding, flying fish, parasailing, and many more. So this could also be related to the event attractions of the destination. And lastly, we have the amenities. So these are the services that are required to meet the needs of the tourists while they are away from home. These include shopping centers, restaurants, tourist information centers, telecommunications, emergency services, and public toilets. However attractive a destination is, its potential for tourism will be limited unless the basic amenities which tourists require are provided. The facilities differ according to the attraction. In some cases, the amenity itself is the principal attraction, as in the case of resort hotels, which is built to other different kinds of entertainment in a previously undeveloped region. So for example, we have the Resorts World Manila. So in that hotel, they have casinos and other entertainment facilities. So even though it is not the main attraction, but people usually visit the Resorts World Manila because of its facilities and amenities. So now let's talk about the tourist services. So, the passenger transport supplies the most essential tourist services as well as the movement at the destination. The distinctions are between public and private, domestic and international, and among various modes like land, air, and sea. So the role of our passenger transport drivers are really very important. Actually, it is a basic requirement that they should also have a training about customer service because they are considered as frontliners. Majority of our drivers are the first in line to meet our tourists. For example, we have the taxi drivers. So when a tourist exits an airport, the first person that he or she meets is actually a taxi driver or a tour guide. So communication skills is also very important for our drivers, and they must also be knowledgeable of the destinations because tourists could actually ask them about the destinations about the attractions in a certain destination. And like for example, what happened when we went to Palawan, most of the drivers there actually sell tour packages and they act as tour guides. So you don't need actually tour guides unless you would like to have full information about the destination there. So if you are a DIY traveler and you want to explore on your own, you could just pay a driver and buy his or her tour package. So next is accommodation, food and beverage, and entertainment constitute the second group of tourist services. Hotels are a vital concern to a large group of tourists. However, many visitors stay with friends and relatives and in other private accommodations. Others provide their own housing in the form of tents or recreational vehicles. Food and beverage operations become people across all sectors of the travel industry, as eating is a necessity and a pleasure for travelers. Moreover, entertainment combined with amusement and recreation is a primary reason why millions of people travel. So even your private homes could also be considered as accommodations because there are tourists who would like to stay at the houses of the local people in the destination that they visit. Next is we have the travel agent and tour operator that comprises the third group of tourist services. So they are actually part of the intermediaries. So the travel agent serves as the distributor of the product while the tour operator is the manufacturer. The travel agent provides an intermediary function between the tourist and providers of transport and accommodation. On the other hand, the tour operator combines the individual components of a tour into a product, which is then sold directly to the public through travel agents. So the difference of the two is that the tour operator is the creator of a tour product, while the travel agent is the seller of it. So other tourist services include currency, documentation, information, sightseeing, and shopping. So currency is also part of the tourist services because this is actually applicable for international tourism because when international tourists arrive in a country, the first thing that they will find is a foreign exchange services or the money changer shops. So these should be available in the destinations. Next is the documentation. So this is also applicable for foreign tourists because when they visit a destination, documentations are very important. What are the examples of this documentation? We have here passports, visa, proof of identity. It could be ID. For Philippines, the case is sometimes we're required to have our PSA certified birth certificate. I mean the authenticated one. We also need as well the booking at the hotel, our accommodation booking. Sometimes if we have availed the services of the tour package, we are also required to show our reservation or the itinerary itself or the confirmed reservation of that certain tour package. Next is information. So information is very important in a tourist destination because especially for those tourists who are not really from the country, the first thing that they should look is the basic information about that specific country. And the language that are used in posting information should be understandable for the tourists. In some cases, there are destinations that uses different languages when they post information. For example, when we went to Malaysia or Singapore, they have actually posted there English, Hindi, and Chinese because there are various of cultures and languages living in Singapore. There are also some destinations that uses Japanese and Korean language when they post information. Here in the Philippines, it is actually now existing. There are some destinations that uses different languages to communicate with their tourists. Aside from that, tourist information centers should also be available, especially in the airports, so that when tourists arrive, they can immediately ask information about the country. Next is sightseeing and shopping. So these are also part of the tourist services because the main purpose why people usually travel to a certain destination is because they want to have sightseeing or they want to visit the attractions. And some people also visit a destination because they would like to have a shopping, especially for women. Alright, so now we will be talking about the characteristics of tourism and hospitality. So the first one here is the product is not brought to the consumer. Instead, the consumer has to travel and go to the product to purchase it. In other industry, before you could buy a product, you could actually inspect it and order it online. It can be delivered to you. But for tourism, it is not that case. In our industry, the tourist really need to go to the destination to experience the services that he or she purchases. Because most of our products are actually cannot be delivered to our tourist. Example, a mountain. Can you deliver a mountain to a tourist? Of course not. So for the tourist to avail that tourist product, of course, the tourist should go to the destination to see the mountain itself. So next is we have here the products of tourism and hospitality are not used up. Thus, they do not exhaust the country's natural resources. The product of other industries has a limited life and at the end of it is either junked or replaced with new ones. However, in our industry, the services are intangible products and they last long. And instead of exploiting our natural resources, one of the benefits of tourism is the preservation and conservation of our environment. Next is tourism and hospitality is a labor-intensive industry. So since this industry provides mostly services, it requires more manpower than other sectors. So there are actually lots of job opportunities that you can find in tourism and hospitality industry. And we actually offers also jobs to other fields or other industries. For example, accountants and doctors can also work in the tourism industry. Next is tourism and hospitality is a people-oriented industry. So it is primarily concerned with people. Tourists are motivated to travel because aside from seeing the attractions, they also like to meet other people and see how they live. So next is tourism and hospitality is a multidimensional phenomenon. So it is dependent on various activities that are separate but independent. So as what we have previously discussed, tourism is a very complex industry composed of different components. So each of these components functions independently, but they are somehow interrelated with each other. So for example, accommodation and the entertainment industry are actually different sectors, but they are actually combined in tourism services. Next is the tourism industry and hospitality industry is seasonal. So there are peak and lean seasons in our industry. So during the peak season, such as holidays, most people travel for vacations. However, when these vacation seasons end, or shall we say lean season, the number of tourists will eventually decline and result in a decrease of the income of tourist establishments. And lastly, the industry is dynamic. It is characterized by changing ideas and attitudes of its customers and must always be prepared and willing to adjust to these changes. So this means that we should be always updated with the latest trends and continue developing our services and the products that we offer to our tourists. So our next topic is about the importance of tourism and hospitality. Tourism and hospitality have become one of the world's major industries. Both the developing and highly developed countries are now eyeing at these potential benefits of tourism and hospitality industry. The first one that we have here is contributions to the balance of payments. Tourism and hospitality can help in correcting the balance of payments and deficits of many countries by earning the much needed currency in international trade. So for example, Spain, Mexico, Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore, and even Philippines are some of the countries that benefited from it. So in the case of the Philippines, for example, if we have a foreign tourist from the US, that tourist will bring a US dollar when he visits here in the Philippines. So that US dollar will become our reserve, and that reserve will be used when we are going to import products. So next is dispersion of development. International hospitality and tourism are the best means to spread wealth among countries. Thus, it is bridging the economic gap between the rich and the poor nations, which is related to the third one, which is the effect on general economic development. So expenditures by tourists can have beneficial effects on all economical sectors and can lead to the development of different industries and other economic benefits. So for example, the revenue of a hotel is used to pay taxes to the government, and these taxes that are paid are used by the government to build new infrastructures. So the income of tourism helps in the development of the destination. Another advantage of tourism is it gives employment opportunities. Tourism and hospitality is a service industry that provides employment opportunities. It has a significant effect on those countries with surplus labor, such as the Philippines. So since we have a lot of activities in tourism, you can also have a lot of job opportunities. Another advantage is the social benefits. So the social exchange takes place when visitors come in contact with the local people at the places they visit. The visitor's social background and their presence affect the social structure and way of life of the local residents. In the same way, tourists are also affected by the experience so that they often carry with them new habits and a new outlook on life when they return home. And this is related to the next one, which is the cultural enrichment. So the industry emphasizes a sharing and appreciation of cultures rather than the lack of trust brought about by isolation. Through this, people can appreciate the abundant human and cultural diversity that the world offers and evolve a mutual trust and respect for one another and the dignity of life on earth. More so, it contributes to the preservation of the world's heritage. World's cultural heritage. Next is educational significance. tourism and hospitality enhance one's education. International conventions, conferences, seminars, and study trips that are held each year enable people of all nations to exchange ideas, propose solutions to problems, and share their concerns. They provide updated information for enhancing the knowledge and skills required for the development of the tourism and hospitality industry. So, I believe in the saying that experience is the best teacher. So, in tourism, the main service that we offer is actually the tourist experience. So, that thing itself is educational because even starting from the conceptualization of the tourist trip, that tourist is already learning about the destination more so after he or she visited that destination. So I really do believe that tourism and hospitality gives educational significance. And lastly, it is a vital force for peace. A properly designed and developed tourism and hospitality can help bridge the psychological and cultural distances that separate people of different races, colors, religions, and stages of social and economic development. In facilitating more genuine social relationships among individuals, tourism and hospitality can help overcome prejudices and foster international brotherhood and world understanding. Thus, it can become a real force for world peace. So that ends our discussion for this chapter. So any questions, clarifications, comments, and suggestions, you may just message your teacher or send a topic for discussion in your class group chat. So see you on the next chapter, everyone.